Summertime. Holiday time. What's the view you're hoping for? Bit of this? Or this? Or will it be this?
Want to go home?
Tonight on Panorama, the family's caught up in airport chaos.
We missed my dad's funeral. It's probably the worst day of my life because just feeling so out of control.
We investigate the performance of airports and airlines.
Travel chaos. Queue so much in the airport that they have to queue outside it.
We've seen 17,000 flight cancellations, so that's enough space for 3 million disgruntled passengers to fill Wembley Stadium 33 times.
What a shambles.
Has anyone seen my bag?
Absolutely abysmal. Heathrow Airport. Get your act together.
This is what we all want. Be abroad, somewhere different, somewhere hot. But it's been a lot of hassle for a lot of people. So what went wrong? I'm on my way to meet the Kane family in Cheshire. In May, a long-planned family trip turned into a nightmare.
Hi, how are you? It's Rachel.
So do you want to talk me through the whole experience?
Yeah, we planned a holiday 2 years ago for my parents' 40th wedding anniversary.
They boarded a plane at Manchester Airport, only to be told their flight to Tenerife was cancelled. The children were devastated, but the family's problems had only just begun. They were sent home. At 5:30 the next morning, they got an email. Their replacement flight would now depart from Gatwick, a 7-hour coach ride away.
I actually got hold of EasyJet on the support line and I begged them. I said, you can't send us on this coach. She told me if we didn't take this flight, we'd completely miss the holiday. Also, if we cancelled, we wouldn't get a refund because it was classed as a suitable alternative.
So they accepted, but when they finally got to Gatwick, they discovered this flight too was delayed. After 12 hours of travel and delay, another email arrived. Their second flight was cancelled.
Presumably at this stage you're thinking, I just don't know what's going to happen with this holiday. Are we ever going to get there?
No. At this point, I was angry that there's no help, that we'd been taken all the way to Gatwick with 2 children.
Nicola was told their only option was to wait until the following afternoon.
So we literally lay the children on restaurant benches. They went to sleep on there. My mum lay on a floor. My dad had to sit in a chair upright and try and go to sleep that way.
After another night of uncertainty, the news their third flight was also facing lengthy delays.
We were tired, we were exhausted, we just had had enough. And I said, we want to go.
EasyJet refunded the cost of the holiday and paid for a taxi home. 3 days late, the Kanes finally made it to Tenerife by rebooking with another operator. But at a price, that package cost twice what they paid EasyJet.
I think they've got to start looking after the customers. I think customer service has gone out the window.
At first, EasyJet refused to pay any compensation.
So I did challenge it and said, so for the 3 days of hell we went through, other than a full refund for the holiday, we are not entitled to anything. She did call me back and offer a £150 flight voucher.
Between 8 of us.
Between 8 of you?
Yes.
Between 8 of you?
Yes.
EasyJet say they're very sorry for the flight cancellations, and in addition to offering a full refund and expenses, they've offered the Kanes a £500 flight voucher. They say the problem was caused by air traffic control delays, which they could do nothing about.
Outside and all around. It's travel chaos.
It's been a shaky start to the summer, with lots of airlines cancelling flights. Millions have had to change their plans. Panorama asked aviation data analysts Cirium to crunch the number of flights being cancelled.
We've seen 17,000 cancellations already from the start of the year to where we are now. And that's a cancellation within 72 hours of that flight taking off. If you put it into context, those 17,000 flights is 3 million seats. So that's enough space for 3 million disgruntled passengers to fill Wembley Stadium 33 times.
What a shambles. Absolutely abysmal Heathrow Airport. Get your act together.
Behind all the chaos, there's a big problem. Not enough staff. The pandemic effectively shut down the entire industry. Airlines alone announced 30,000 redundancies. Then we unlocked.
We want to go home.
But if loads of us knew we were bursting to go on holiday, why did the people in charge seemingly not realise that and not prepare for it?
I've come to John Lennon Airport in Liverpool to meet the man in charge.
Hi, Rachel. Nice to meet you.
Really nice to see you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming over. So all of our departing passengers come through here to go through security. What we've had as an industry is a stop-start for 2 years. We've had, no traffic, and then all of a sudden, summer's allowed. So we've never been able to plan. It was very difficult to really keep, retain, and then recruit staff because you'd go ready to go, and then all of a sudden, Spain would close for 2 weeks. Portugal would need a test. So it's very hard for airlines and for airports to be ready.
During the pandemic, Liverpool Airport made just 35 of their 250 staff redundant and also started early to fill vacancies.
In January, we kind of took the decision to go and start to recruit with the time that we need to bring people in and train them up to be compliant and ready to run. So we were in the process of recruiting early and we kept it going. And fortunately, now we're seeing people come back. We've got enough staff to cope with the demand that we're seeing.
With just 22 cancellations from 2,600 scheduled departures, they've had fewer problems here than most UK airports.
So this is more of the back of house, so no passengers really walk this way.
Some of that is down to retaining staff. If your bag goes astray, an experienced handler could get it on board in 5 minutes. A new recruit may take longer. Then if your flight is kept waiting, it could get cancelled because for safety reasons, cabin crews are only permitted to work set hours.
One lonely suitcase.
The skill set that people have across the whole airport site, especially here in baggage, is absolutely vital, whether or not you're putting bags onto a plane or taking them off. To get them in the right place on the right time is a huge part of the customer journey.
And it's not just baggage handling. Airports use lots of separate companies to provide essential services. Check-in, refuelling, catering, and it doesn't stop there.
You've got border control, that's not run by the airport. They also have third-party relationships with the police. So you have this complex web of different relationships going on. And what happens is if one of them goes wrong, so say your baggage handlers don't turn up or they get stuck with one airline, don't turn up to your departure, bags can't go on. The crew who are on there, they run out of time, they've got to get off, there's got to be another crew. The whole airport starts to grind to a halt.
Airports have struggled to bring back staff who left during the pandemic. Why?
I'm waiting to meet a guy who used to work at Manchester Airport but was made redundant during the pandemic. And he's told me to come here to this car park and he's going to fill me in on his story, hopefully. Hi, Farouk. Hi, nice to see you.
Farouk's now a taxi driver, but used to work in airport security. Like many, he was put on furlough, but early last year, he says he was told the airport wasn't expecting to bounce back anytime soon.
Did that really take you by surprise?
Airport is quiet, and their thoughts are we probably weren't going to get busy till 23, 24.
23, 24?
Yeah, that's what they're thinking.
How does working in a taxi now compare to the life you had working in security at the airport?
Taxi is, I'm self-employed, so you can start anytime, you finish anytime, so this is different compared to airport. Airport is it's a shift system there, and I prefer taxi compared to airport now, so...
What about the pay?
I think pay-wise is probably a bit similar. Quality of life is better, I think, is better. I give more time to my kids, to my family.
Manchester Airport told us their redundancy figures were in line with or lower than many other airports. This year they've been recruiting strongly and they've changed their plans in the light of higher than expected passenger numbers.
Kelly, this is Storm.
Doncaster Airport is hiring. Today, an aviation recruitment firm is interviewing for security and cleaning jobs.
Certainly companies like myself are frantically now recruiting very heavily for the summer.
But getting candidates to turn up for an interview is proving a challenge.
Just to give you an example, we booked in 20 people to turn up to this morning. We've called those individuals prior to them arriving today to confirm that their availability. Of those individuals, 11 people have turned up, okay? 9 people have not showed.
I've always been quite fascinated with airports.
Of the 11 who do turn up, 7 pass the interview. But that doesn't automatically mean they can start work at the airport.
So, Kelly, based on the information you provided me today, I'm happy to offer you a conditional offer subject to performing security checks on you.
Lovely. Yeah, okay, that's brilliant.
The next problem we're going to have now is to get people security cleared.
Clearance involves checking an applicant's work history, so if they've had lots of previous jobs, it can take time.
If we cannot get these people security cleared quick enough, it means that those 7 individuals will drop out or find jobs elsewhere.
There's one group of people affected more than most by staff shortages. Those who need extra help at the airport. BBC radio producer Victoria Brignall has been paralysed from the neck down since she was 6 years old. When she arranged a holiday to Malta, she pre-booked assistance to get her on and off the plane.
Over the years, I've heard many horror stories from disabled people. However, this year I was really keen to go to Malta, and so I decided to take the plunge.
When she flew back into Gatwick at the end of May, her fears were realised.
It does take me a while to disembark a plane, and it needs to be done very carefully and safely, so it makes sense for me to be the last person off the plane. The airline staff came up to me and said that I need to wait at least 50 minutes, and that became an hour and a half.
Despite Victoria's friend tweeting these pictures, no one from Special Assistance showed up. The Civil Aviation Authority has told airports to improve their services for disabled passengers or face legal action.
So in the end, it was the airline staff who got me off the plane. 2 of the air stewardesses lifted me out into my own wheelchair, and they were very apologetic, even though it wasn't their fault. They were as frustrated and cross as I was, because the next flight was delayed taking off, which presumably would have cost the airline money and delayed all the passengers who were supposed to be on that flight.
Gatwick apologised, saying the service that Victoria received was unacceptable. As staff shortages continue, some have blamed our departure from the EU. Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary said Brexit is one of the big bugbears in the system. And EasyJet say they've turned away 8,000 job applicants who no longer have the right to work in the UK. Others in the industry agree.
There's less of a pool to go and look at, and that has started to hurt us. You know, our retailers and catering people would recruit seasonal workforce from the EU. They can no longer do that now, so there is a shortage.
What the sector is telling us is that Brexit has been a contributory factor in those staff shortages.
I don't think that stands up when you look around the world as what we're seeing. You're seeing very significant problems in Holland, in France, with Lufthansa. In Ireland, none of those have left the European Union. They're still members.
EasyJet said there were 8,000 job applications that they had to reject because of visa restrictions.
I would really just refer you again to what I think is a fairly common sense point, that if there were thousands of workers available to come and assist us in the UK, they'd also be helping Schiphol, they'd be helping Lufthansa, they'd be helping France, they'd be helping Ireland.
The minister thinks it's up to the industry to sort out staffing problems.
But at the end of the day, this is a sector that is privately run, privately owned, privately operated, and it's for them to get into the sector the people that they need.
Levels of pay are at the centre of strike threats this summer.
Maybe airport money needs to go up.
Well, look, I think, everywhere is struggling with the cost of living. We're not insulated from that. At Liverpool, it is a challenge. We've all lost a lot of money through COVID, and while we all understand the cost of living increases, there's only so much we can do.
Across Europe, airports such as Brussels, Frankfurt and Amsterdam have experienced some of the chaos we've seen here in the UK. But not all countries reacted to COVID in the same way. I've come to Milan in northern Italy.
In this airport, Milan Malpensa, how many people lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic? None. How did they do it? I'm going to find out.
Malpensa is a busy airport with up to 28 million passengers a year. Unlike some UK airports, it's mostly publicly owned and hasn't seen the queuing, baggage and security problems now familiar in Britain.
So it must have been really difficult when COVID hit here.
A real shock. I mean, this was the first part of the Western world to be hit, and maybe the darkest of times, yes.
In Italy, the government took the decision to step in with an extensive, and for the taxpayer, expensive financial aid package, including extended furlough and an €800 million cash subsidy.
They provided a very strong and robust furlough scheme connected to the inability for us to sack people. So we were not allowed to lay people off.
So you couldn't
even if we wanted to, we didn't want to, but even if we wanted to, we couldn't. So now we have everybody back.
They used the extra money to invest in new technology.
Here, these machines are an example. This is latest generation machines and have two key features. One is that they supply 30% more throughput.
Yep.
So same machine, same staff, 30% more people. That's really important today during a pandemic. And in terms of passenger experience, they're much, much better because you don't need to take liquids and computers out of your bag, which we all know that's a big hassle for any of us.
No sheer bags of little bottles of liquids?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
The UK aviation industry received £8 billion in financial support during the pandemic, mainly in the form of loans. The government says a new 22-point plan will ensure airlines operate more realistic schedules and provide passengers a better service.
I've been to Milan Airport in Italy. They were given a cash grant by their government, and that has allowed them to not only retain their staff, but actually invest in new technologies. And now the experience for the passenger travelling through that airport is better than it's ever been.
So look, the key thing that sits behind perhaps your question is to understand the way that the airport sector and the airline sector is structured. It's different in every country. Other countries, for example, are much more nationalised or much more state-owned than ours are. So we also have a balancing act that we have to undertake in any event, which is that we have to give support. And as I said, we've given support. But we also have to make sure that we are looking after public money at the same time.
So where does this leave us? How should we plan for our summer holidays?
Do you think everyone's going to be ready, set for this summer?
They're not going to be ready. That's the truth of the matter. What's reassuring is that it's not all airlines, it's not all airports. Most places are operating without significant disruptions. It's a very limited number of operators. We see, there's very few complaints about Luton, for example, which, often people had lots of complaints about before the pandemic, but at the moment seems to be operating okay. Ryanair is operating okay. So, before you book, take a look around what's happening at the airport near you, the airlines you're considering, and make your decision based on that.
Panorama asked data analyst Cirium to work out how airlines have been performing over the last few months. Ryanair and Virgin Atlantic did well, cancelling fewer than 1 in every 1,000 flights. EasyJet and British Airways did less well, both with around 3 out of every 100 flights cancelled. We contacted wanted to appear on camera, so I spoke to Rob Griggs from Airlines UK, the trade association.
We should stress the majority of flights have gone, even during the height of the problems we saw over half-term and the Jubilee. something like 2 to 4% of flights were cancelled compared to 1% normally. So the vast majority of flights were not being cancelled.
But there were more flights than they could cope with.
Clearly, there have been problems, not just because of airlines, but because of baggage handlers and other things outside of airlines' control.
Were they not talking to the other parts of the airport then to get an idea of this?
I think the sector always talks to each other. And what we've seen is the kinds of issues we've been seeing, they're not affected every single airline in the same way. They're not affected all airports in the same way or different parts of the systems.
Many of us are trying to reduce our carbon footprint by flying less, but sometimes only a flight is quick enough. Tracy Dane lives near Lyon in France. In late May, her father died suddenly.
That was my dad last September, and he was just the proud granddad that day. He raised over £10,000 for St Luke's Hospice, the hospice that looked after him.
The only flight back to Bristol was an evening departure from Geneva. Tracy arrived at the gate in good time.
It was such an important trip. I kept checking my phone and I saw that it was cancelled, and there was a moment of disbelief.
An EasyJet alert said IT issues had led to the cancellation of around 200 flights. Tracy's appeared to be one of them. The plane she was supposed to catch hadn't even left Bristol, but she says she wasn't told. If she'd known, she says she could have booked a different flight.
I firmly believe that had EasyJet officially cancelled the flight when they knew there was no aeroplane going to arrive in Geneva, I would have had time to use the app to switch electronically to the Gatwick flight, and I would have been able to go to my dad's funeral.
She could only watch as the Gatwick flight closed and took off without her.
I was 10 metres away from the bridge to board the flight. The flight hadn't started boarding. It was probably around 10 o'clock, 10:15, when we realised that no one was going to help us and that we would miss the funeral. It's probably the worst day of my life, because just feeling so out of control and no one available, no one interested in offering any assistance.
EasyJet say Tracy's flight wasn't cancelled due to IT issues, but because of air traffic control restrictions that meant cabin crew would have exceeded their safe working hours. However, they've apologised for her experience and arranged for a donation to be made to the hospice that cared for her father. Panorama also looked at data for which airports had experienced the most cancellations. Big airports like Heathrow, Gatwick and Manchester have all seen large numbers of cancellations. But it's not just about airport size, it's also the performance of the airlines based there. Stansted had around the same number of flights as Manchester, but just 29 cancellations, compared to airlines cancelling 223 flights at Manchester. Staff shortages are one reason why so many flights are being cancelled at short notice.
It is my favourite spot.
But travel writer Simon Calder believes there may be something else going on.
A fundamental problem this year has been the desperation by British Airways here at Heathrow and by EasyJet at Gatwick to hang on to their portfolio of slots, those most precious of assets, the right to take off and land at particular times at really the world's most constrained airports. And they were so desperate to keep them, they just completely overpromised the schedules they could deliver.
For airlines, a takeoff and landing slot is a bit like owning a prime piece of airport real estate, and the rules say you either use it or lose it. So cancelling flights too far in advance could mean a competitor is given your precious slots.
You'll also get a £200 holiday voucher. Listen, we get a £200 holiday voucher per person, obviously to go on another holiday. No!
Faced with scenes like this, last month the government allowed airlines to cancel scheduled summer flights far in advance without fear of losing their slots. This summer, tens of thousands of flights have been withdrawn, but Simon Calder says it'll be passengers, not airlines, paying the price.
You won't be going today.
If you're taking 5 million seats out of the market, it's doing a couple of things. It's making fares go through the roof, which is absolutely fantastic for the airlines. So if British Airways cancels, let's say, half its 10 or so flights a day to Nice from here, the prices on the remaining flights are astronomical. So that's kind of quite good for them. It also means that anybody who's been thinking, oh, well, we're not really sure if we can afford a holiday. OK, yep, we think we can, let's go for one. They're not going to be able to find availability.
British Airways say it was a responsible action to reduce their summer schedule, with most customers put on alternative flights within 24 hours. EasyJet deny late cancellations are connected to slot allocation. They say it's not in any airline's interest to put on more flights than it can operate, and disruption is a result of many factors. They say their last-minute cancellation rate has improved over recent weeks. Recruiting and training new staff can't be done overnight, so the short-term solution to reduce chaos is for some airlines to reduce their daily number of flights.
Now, they're getting bad publicity for doing it, but it's the right thing to do. They've got to put a fire break in terms of the chaos that's going on to stop, be able to manage their flights more effectively and to focus on the ones they can deliver as they double down to bring the staff back into the industry that have been lost.
It might be certain airlines, it might be one or two airports. I'm not saying the whole industry, but will you say that actually, at some level, a wrong decision was made, and that's what created then the situation where we had these last-minute cancellations, the chaos at baggage handling?
I will only speak for airlines to say that, no, I don't think there were wrong decisions made in terms of planning for the summer. Of course, it might be operationally on the day, different things perhaps could have been done in different places.
So you're saying the airlines have done nothing wrong over the last 6 months in terms of their planning for this year?
I think the airlines have done everything they can to plan for recovery, given the huge impact of the pandemic.
What can you say to passengers travelling through airports this summer? Can you give them any guarantees that they're going to experience any kind of smooth journey?
Look, even in good times, at periods of high passenger volume, you do sometimes see cancellations in airports, particularly when it's busy, and sometimes you get technical problems. Aircraft become unserviceable, crew may be ill, and let's forget COVID's still there, and COVID is still something that is causing people to be absent. So sometimes there will be delays. That's the case normally, so I can never promise there will never be delays.
The school holiday season is starting. Who can say where chaos will land next? If your trip is spoiled by delay or cancellation, making a complaint could help reform the industry.
Some estimates say it's less than 40% of people who are entitled to claim do actually claim. If everybody did, then you can be pretty sure that the airlines would improve their performance.
And if you don't fancy taking your chances this summer, you could follow in the Kane family footsteps.
Have you got any plans to go away this summer?
We have, but not abroad. We're not chancing it at all.
Until we can get some reassurance from the airlines, there's absolutely no chance we'll be booking until next year.
Well, it wasn't that long ago when Heathrow was eerily quiet. Join Jeremy back at the airport on BBC iPlayer. Next on BBC One, two inspirational men turning a negative past into a positive future. Extraordinary portraits.